Well, hello there and welcome to the kitchen of the dollhouse. And what are we cooking up today? Well, my friends, another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for March 17th, the day of the Aerialist. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Aerialist. Well, we have us an image of what could it be? Boom, it looks to be a early 20th or late 19th century Victorian on a flying machine. That's right. Does that speak to the day of the Aerialist? Hey, I would say to some extent it does. Sometimes these things are rather enigmatic. That one's pretty on the nose. That said, visual representational image aside, not altogether all too important, because what's important around here is it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday's March 17th, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important around here. Wishing you a happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, as it often tends to do sometimes, because you're not necessarily looking for your birthday on the day, well, I just hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for anybody else who's joining us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, well, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before we get started with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake and roll some dice. But if you've been here before and you want to get right into the read, well, just skip ahead in the chapters. I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 6 and a 1 for a 7. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be, if you like, will sometimes or oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But oftentimes, as we're getting on in this world, we got the blinders up to such things. We're not cognizant of the things that come into our path and maybe the relevance that they may have. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help you get those blinders off and maybe start recognizing the things the universe is putting in front of you. But how do we do this exercise? Well, we need some kind of mutually agreed upon sign between us and the universe that we can't help but recognize. That's right. Your daily numbers there. Now, you don't have to go the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you raid the old Yahtzee set out of the closet, grab a couple dice, and use them yourself, all right? So you can ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive and direct you where it wants you to go. That said, then you just pick out a place maybe near and dear to your heart or some place you haven't explored before and you set off, all right? I often like to pick the town square, so let's go with it, all right? You get to the town square, all right, and like I said, get those blinders off, all right? You never know. Outside of your numbers popping up, you might start to see a theme manifest in your day there. Let's take the flying machine, the early 19th or the late 19th century, early 20th century Victorian individual. Hey, maybe you start seeing people dressed that way, or you see flying machines all over the place. But it doesn't necessarily have to be in a literal fashion. It could be the visual representational image of as much. Say on advertisements, murals on the sides of buildings, and maybe even just inside shop windows or crossing your path literally. You never know. But you also can't tell what the theme's going to be. So you got to be taking everything in like a sponge. That said, maybe get to the end of your first directional value, time limit. You haven't seen anything of note, just the everyday goings on. Well, just take things in stride. Sometimes it probably takes the universe a little bit of time to put things, manifest things into your path, direct things where they need to go. But that said, take everything in around you. Like I said, maybe you notice something small, like that's right, maybe on old 61st Avenue there or 7th Street, all right? Hey, you know what? It might just be your numbers present in those kinds of terms, all right? So I would take that to show you that you're on the right path. Maybe you roll yourself another directional value time limit. No sooner do you get that first number, you look up and say, you know what, whatever number you rolled, well, that's the bus that pulls up, all right? Hey, that's interesting, you know what? And maybe on the side of the bus bench, hey, you know what, some kind of a theme that has presented. Who's to say, all right? That said, I would take that as a sign to get on the bus. But maybe in your, I don't know, apprehension to do as much, once it leaves, right? Hey, you know what? I would just use that as a sign that that's the direction to go in, and maybe just follow that direction for the number that was on your dice, all right? Maybe the bus pulls way ahead. There's no way of catching up with it. That's fine. You know what? Even if you miss certain things, as I hear it told, the universe will find a way to get you right back on the same path, or the one it thinks you should be on there, if you like. That said, at the end of this time value, maybe you find yourself in front of a building that has the numbers that you just rolled and the address there, if you like. I would say go in, see what you see. Hey, maybe it just so happens to be a bicycle shop, all right? We're going with the theme here, aren't we? That's interesting. Go in there, and maybe you're not in the market for a bike. I know a lot of people probably aren't if they already have one. That said, the person behind the desks asks how they can help you. Hey, just be transparent about what you're doing, all right? Show them your dice, maybe show them this video. I'm just here on my birthday trying to shake things up, see what the universe has in store for me, see if there's any kind of merit to what this clown on the internet's talking about. And that person might be out to go, that's pretty crazy. And you go, I know, I agree with you. And they go, well, that too. But what's crazier is it's my birthday too. Oh, I know it sounds a little bit harebrained, but you know what? Truth can sometimes be stranger than fiction, all right? So that said, maybe nobody else is in the market for a bike. Hey, maybe that individual closes up shop because they own it, and they join you on this journey, all right? Maybe they want something magical in their life on their birthday too, all right? And what's great about that, and even if it's not their birthday, hey, there's more people that are focused on the same result, manifesting something unique. You're apt to beget greater results, or so I hear it. But in any event, that's synchronicity in a nutshell. So get out there, start stacking up some coincidences or some synchronicities if you like. I think they're interchangeable in that respect. And if you see, taste, touch, smell, intuit, hear, sense any kind of such things, that's the kind of magic or things that I like to call magic in any event. So hopefully you see some of it, all right? And hopefully it blows your hair back and shakes up your birthday. That said, I think you get the idea, so let's get on with the birthday reading, all right? Your month is March, your day the 17th, your sign is 25 rather, to 27 degrees Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically, well, I'm already getting mumble mouth, here we go. And your quality and element is mutable water. All right, March 17th, the day of the Aerialist. Those born on March 17 live exciting lives taken up with the reoccurring themes of flying, floating, dancing, music, movement, and travel of all sorts. And they are quite capable of losing themselves in an activity, cause, or experience, and relinquishing many demands of their ego in the process. And highly evolved individuals born on this day are able to engage in such activities while at the same time expressing a strong sense of self. And less highly evolved individuals tend to be overly self-effacing or passive, unable to direct their lives effectively. And March 17 people are never happier than when they are involved in a cause, particularly one which allows them to express their social side. And without such social involvement, March 17 people have a tendency to become isolated. And if they spend too much time alone, they can wrap themselves in a kind of personal cocoon, completely insulating them from the cares and concerns of the world. And at some point, such March 17th people must emerge from their social or personal chrysalis as fully developed butterflies, unafraid to display their uniqueness and their beauty. And this metaphor of the butterfly may be useful here to illustrate several other relevant points. March 17 people must learn to pursue activities with concentrated application, rather than flitting about from one flower to the next. In addition, they may have to toughen their stance in order to guarantee that their projects, as well as their identity and their reputation, will last well beyond one short season. March 17 people tend to value all which is fresh and new in the world. And many born on this day tire quickly of old conventions and outdated ideas, wishing to implement new methods with youthful vigor and innocence. And unfortunately, they can run afoul of fate and also of more highly seasoned realists, who, though cynical or jaded, may have a much firmer grip on the reins of power. And the most highly evolved individuals born on this day manage to rein in their optimism and energy, while at the same time becoming more realistic and effective in implementing their plans. And often their desire to avoid being categorized or pinned down to responsibility. March 17 people become adept at eluding those who wish to ground them. Avoidance can quickly become a device they use to defend those positions they maintain that do not stand up under close scrutiny. And if they wish to be successful, March 17 people must learn to be more thorough and considered, and indulge less in the mutable, less serious aspects of their nature. And for a period of time, their associates, family, and friends, they can be enchanted by their gyrations, but will finally demand that those born on this day come to earth and shoulder their share of mundane concerns, with all of the attendant difficulties and annoyances. And through such grounded activities, March 17th people can effectively contribute to the life around them, and bringing their freshness and creativity to bear. All right, pretty fascinating birthday breakdown for a whole host and variety of reasons. I was rather narrow, kind of laser focused on the theme itself, and then kind of branched out from there to a couple specific things, and then didn't really branch out much further. But I only make mention of that because this seems to be a little bit of a through line since the beginning of Capricorn. And if they do tend to round things out, kind of get into relationships, and maybe what someone's like as a parent or sibling or a child there, and I like to say that's a little bit more rounded. But here nor there, it's a pretty fascinating birthday breakdown, like I said. So let's get into why I think that is, with a little bit of a commentary I like to provide. Make connections with days previous, the period at large, even ideas in the book, and just things I found interesting. So let's dive into it here. March 17th, the day of the Aerialist. You're said to live exciting lives that are taken up with a reoccurring theme of flying, floating, music, movement, travel, and, well, quite a few things, in all honesty, all right? But the reading claims you may be quite capable of losing yourself in an activity, cause, or experience to the extent that you may abandon your ego. So you may get so engrossed that you elevate above your own personal concerns, it sounds like, which may speak more metaphorically to being an aerialist than concerned with the likes of flying specifically, I would say. Having said that, the reading examines the sense of self that may be further bolstered and expressed, or tempered and repressed in the process, all determined upon your state of personal evolution. They don't do this all the time, but they do it once in a while. You get these contrasting dichotomies of people who are more highly evolved or less highly evolved in the characteristics therein. So I thought that was particularly interesting when they started examining that. And that particular dichotomy presents today, too, is pretty interesting for certain reasons. Now, this realization of a schism seems to be pretty commonly present for the other days present in the Pisces period here. And it kind of realized in a myriad of different ways. But for you, seemingly not just how you may proactively persevere or passively flounder, the schism there, through life, as it were, but also in how you may isolate if you're not socially involved. That said, these two specific elements, they usually present independent of one another in this period. It's not an either-or prospect here, as it seems like it is with you. So that's pretty interesting, I thought. What's also of interest is the mix of a draw toward a higher cause that helps you realize your individualism. While it's true a mix of these elements has come up this period, not only is it an anomaly in how it's realized, but this past week's higher cause, well, that's been a bit more focused on the individual themselves, and they're coming to realize their own uniqueness, if you like. They dedicate themselves to that instead of a specific cause or social group, which kind of started off at the beginning of this period and then it kind of translated out. So it's a bit of an anomaly that that's coming back into it here for you, but for a very specific reason, so that you can realize your individualism. So very interesting that that dynamic's presented, but it's in a different way. But it's also, like I said, a bit anomalous. That this dynamic is coming back into the fore. That said, this element of focusing on one subject versus many has also presented the past few days, but placing value in new ideas hasn't been directly mentioned in some time, and so it's interesting to present today, at least for very specific reasons that I'll get to here shortly. But perhaps even more fascinating is this proactive avoidance of more earthly grounded concerns. The idea that you don't have to defend things that won't stand up to scrutiny, and you're using avoidance as a defense. I think that's pretty novel, even though it sounds a little cowardly in certain respects. That said, still kind of funny in my regard, in my in my opinion, anyhow. Let's see here. And whilst these proclivities in this realm may be entertaining to others, at least for a time, it may keep you from contributing to the more mundane elements of everyday life, like they said. Something I've seen in the book before, but it's a surprising anomaly for the period as it turns out. Considering a mind of the more ethereal aspects that we'll get into here in a little bit, and because that's typically baked in with the Pisces mindset, kind of a head in the clouds mentality, and that's not a knock. It's just kind of the best way to describe it. And that kind of pervades through the period writ large. But I can see how that might get annoying to certain folks after a time. You know, they're kind of entertained by how you get through life, avoiding things, finding ways to skirt your way out of certain responsibilities. But yeah, I can definitely agree that would start to wear thin relatively shortly, at least in my opinion. So, in any event, that's what I'd say about the birthday breakdown. Don't know if it applies to you or not, but you know what? When I got my thing read to me, I was like, this doesn't apply at all. And somebody didn't agree. They started making their case, and they just shifted the dynamic a little bit, changed a few of the ideas, which they weren't all that big of a change. It's just a different perspective. And I was like, oh, it does match up perfect. So that may be what you have to do to make it work. That said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets, all right? And if it doesn't match up, hey, maybe we can say a few things here that'll make it draw closer to heart here. Who's to say? So in any event, let's get into it, shall we? Get into the astrology, the numerology. With your numbers and your planets. Those born on the 17th of the month are ruled by the number 8, as 1 plus 7 equals 8, and by the planet Saturn. Saturn carries with it a strong feeling of limitation and restriction, and may indicate a judgmental aspect as well. And these characteristics are modified in March 17th people by an influence of the planet Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, which tends to bring material good fortune as well as an ability to charm others. And number 8 suggests a conflict between the material and the spiritual worlds. And those ruled by this number can be lonely and prone to indulge in excess. All right, very interesting. I would say this thing lines up very well with the breakdown. All right, let's dive back into some notes, see what I had to say here. All right, the number 8 in the restrictive planet Saturn for feelings of limitation, contraction, and strong personal values, and a responsibility for one's actions. All right, so an otherwise conservative nature, if you like, which is the case for most Saturn-ruled days. It manifests as such in no small form or fashion, to say with values of tradition as well as maybe a concern for one's previous roots there, even if the day may rule over an otherwise progressive individual. They still kind of tap back into their roots or some kind of tradition that they appreciate. So, an active desire to implement new ideas in your case, with no real mention of any kind for this otherwise conservative nature, by my mind. And that's why I said this is an interesting dynamic for you, because you seem to buck Saturn's conventions, all right? It's almost as if you defy them, all right? Which, as it turns out, happened just yesterday in no small part. They were defying the planet rulership over them. And so maybe there's a little bit of a through line theme there with these past few days, in no small part. Now, Neptune is said to be the planet that rules over dreams, visions, and illusions, and to lend a concern for otherwise higher ideals. Be them a concern for higher causes or themselves. I think we mentioned as much. Also, romanticism gets baked in there with Neptune. Also, more ethereal versus grounded concerns, or your head in the clouds kind of mentality there. Which I would argue seems to be a chief pull on you versus Saturn. Which, again, a little bit of a trend there, like I mentioned. Also, mention of a conflict between the spiritual and the material there, and I would agree that that sounds exactly like what's going on. Saturn is said to be in strong conflict with a lot of other planets too, as it turns out. It contrasts the traits, specifically with the planet Jupiter. When that came into the mix, whatever particular period it was, can't remember off the top of my head, those days were always rife with frustrations for individuals because they couldn't make connections easily. And I'd say that makes a certain amount of sense in this case, though the dynamic between Saturn and Neptune, it doesn't have been all that often, so I can't really drill down on what that looks like. But for you, maybe that's what it is, what we're seeing here today. You have trouble with the grounding, maybe. Because maybe Neptune just has so much more strength in the mix. Who's to say? But I'm not an astrologer, so I couldn't pin it down for you. That said, I'd say that might be why some kind of struggle here exists, and may explain the breakdown, if that wasn't making sense for you. So, any event, a little bit of a time jump there because I flubbed some things, had to get back into the notes in a different way and tried a different approach because I was mumble mouthing all over the place. I said head in the clouds like 5 times instead of clouds. Let's see if I can keep doing that even as we move on to the tarot. All right, here we go. The 17th card of the major arcana is the Star, which depicts a beautiful naked girl under the stars pouring refreshing water on the parched earth with one pitcher and reviving the stagnant water of a pond with another. She represents the glories of the earthly life, but also material enslavement to it. And the stars above her are an eternal reminder of the presence of the spiritual world. And March 17 people should seek to unite the energies of heaven and earth as suggested symbolically by this card. All right, very interesting here. And why do I say that? Well, let's get into the notes so I don't burn it all down. Here we go. The Star, for representing the glories of earth and an enslavement to it. But a reminder that the stars are within your grasp. And for you, this dynamic seems to be completely flipped, all right? Very interesting in that respect. And I've seen such things happen on other days occasionally. The typical conventions in there, totally reversed. But this card didn't come up on those days, all right? So for them, or at least it didn't come up for them. So this is a very interesting dynamic, and I would argue with the button about uniting this dichotomy of yours as a suggestion. It's also recommended for the more grounded people who get this card. But it makes more sense to them because they're grounded, they got their concerns on the material, they're reaching for the stars. They need to incorporate that into their life. I'd say for you, you've already grasping for the stars. You've probably left the earth a little bit there, day of the Aerialist. So you need to get your feet back on the ground in no small part. So there you go. It's just a flipped dynamic there. So again, bucking the conventions a little bit. So ultimately a suggestion to come down to earth once in a while, I would argue, naturally. for a card that I would say lines up really well otherwise. You just got to flip that dynamic. So what else do we have here? Yeah, that's it. That's what I had to say about it. Reverse dynamics. So in any event, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, those born on March 17th may be prone to physical problems relating to their joints, particularly those of the lower extremities, and they must take particular care of their feet and deal with fungal infections without delay. Interesting. And as far as their diet is concerned, variety and balance are the watchwords. And though the emphasis here should be on sensual enjoyment, they must beware of becoming slaves to food and to keep their consumption of fats and sugar under control. Regarding physical exercise, March 17 people do well with moderate daily recreation. I was going to say recommendation. Daily recreation, particularly jogging as well as swimming. All right, this was a rather sparse health entry to be sure, but that doesn't mean it wasn't interesting. Let's dive into it here. It says prone to physical problems, the joints, feet. All right, the feet are a Pisces body area, so, and it doesn't get brought up too often. And when it does, it's usually things about circulation, if you like. But here for you, they brought up fungal infections. That's a first, all right? But you know what? There are some of these Neptune days that present where the person is hypersensitive to stimuli. Also, people who get allergic to a lot of things. That's popped up 2, 3, maybe 4 times. And so I would say maybe in no small part, that's where it's coming from. So they might be prone to fungal infections too. They just didn't say. They just brought up the allergies. So what am I trying to say? Maybe take note. You start getting that athlete's foot, get after it, all right? Your diet should include a variety and a balance, they said, but no mention of any specific foods here for you. And that's a little bit of an anomaly, book writ large, but going back to Capricorn, they kind of started ditching the foods a little bit. It comes up here and there, but I would say with this Neptune kind of influence, it's usually grounded, earthy foods, wheat, vegetables, those kinds of things, staying away from the animal fats and such. But dairy specifically, considering the other Pisces body area, is the lymphatic system. And dairy just doesn't do well. It builds up the mucus or something. So you want to avoid it for that reason. So again, they kind of bucked convention themselves by not incorporating any kind of foods, but hey, you know what, maybe Saturn grounds you to a certain extent so you can kind of enjoy what you like as long as you don't get carried away from the sounds of it. And that aspect about sensuous indulgence or an enslavement to food, very novel. I don't think that's come up this period, and if it did, one other time. And I say that because I can't think of it. All right, so maybe take note is what I'm trying to say with that too. What else do we have here? But moderate to regular exercise with an arguable grounding activity. Rather boilerplate aspect there, I would say. But it's surprising that it's there and that they didn't elaborate more if there's a conflict between Saturn and Neptune. Now, sometimes with Neptune influences, they recommend things that help you kind of keep your head in the clouds, but also maybe stay grounded at the same time. So say like a walk in nature, things like that. But I'd say swimming too might dovetail with that perfectly, because they say Neptune's also a watery planet, at least in astrological terms. So I think it's a gas giant, isn't it? Not too sure. But in any event, that's astronomy. I'm not too strong in that area either. So that said, that's been your health. Pretty interesting, albeit it was sparse. So that was an anomaly also. But in any event, let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Ground yourself in experience, all right, and without losing your enthusiasm, partake in the practical areas of life. Tend to your daily tasks and learn from them, and become more consequent in your endeavors, all right? And don't make changes so readily. All right. I would say that this is a rather quick, fast, down and dirty, kind of in and out, if you like, quick, fast, down and dirty piece of advice, but it's pretty on par. And a little bit redundant with things we've already mentioned, but I would say that's because they're valuable, all right? So what did I have to say about what they had to say? They said ground yourself in experience, all right? I'm glad they expanded this to ostensibly reinforce being social. At least that's one interpretation. Another is don't isolate yourself or insulate so much, if that's what you do, or at least don't do it completely. This isolation thing, a bit of a theme for a lot of folks in this period. And what's interesting is for some of them, it works out great, all right? For others, not at all. They shut down, they get complacent. It doesn't help them. Others flourish. So for you, it sounds like kind of a mixed bag, all right? You got to get out there socially sometimes. And even for those who flourish isolated, they're still told to get out and socialize and kind of exercise that muscle so that it doesn't atrophy. But in any event, what else we got here? They said partake in more practical areas of your life without losing enthusiasm. You may just have to find a grounding, realistic influence to not only help fan the flames and enrich your your dreams and your illusions. All right, it might help you to build upon what you're already doing. So I wouldn't poo-poo it. Even though like 9 out of 10 times it may not be helpful, there's still that one, and I would say it's good practice if you like. What else do we have here? Also, maybe just get excited for as much. And it's kind of like a Dale Carnegie kind of thing where you fool yourself into liking something. Maybe eventually you will start to in reality. All right. What else did they have here? Say that dovetails nicely with tending to daily tasks and learning from them. All right. Just tell yourself you're going to start to like them or fool yourself into doing those daily tasks. And then maybe you can get something from them eventually. Or maybe that's just it. You got to fool yourself into saying, hey, I need to take some value from this and then get after it. All right. And I would say there is value in, the chopping wood and the carrying water in Buddhist terms. All right. Even if it's just to cultivate patience and break from your usual form. All right. Sometimes we need that. And you might find that the ideas just start flowing in. Or maybe you found yourself up against a brick wall with something and you know what, take a break from it, get some things done, and then boom, hey, maybe you caught into what you needed. Who's to say? In either event, you're getting some tasks done, and those people who are maybe are getting frustrated with you not doing anything, well, hey, there you go. You satiated them a little bit, I would say. They said become more consequent or logically conclusive, if we define that out, in your endeavors. And don't make changes so readily, all right? Again, more grounding advice, I would say, but doubling down on chasing things out, all right, to their end, if you like, and not maybe abandoning them if they don't seem to be working out. Or maybe just focusing on one thing for a while and getting it closer to the finish line. Not abandoning it when you want to or when you feel like I'm going to move on to the next thing. Hey, maybe push it just a little bit further down the road than you usually would. Who's to say? Something that comes up with a lot of other folks here recently also, believe it or not. So maybe give it some thought and how and I like how they connected so much of the advice into just one idea, despite it being a bit redundant naturally. But I think that means it's important. And sometimes we need to hear things a variety of different ways before we can cotton to them. Or in the other vein of that thought, we got to hear it 48, 49 different times before we finally go, oh, now I hear it. I don't know. But in any event, that's been your advice. A little disjointed there, I know, but hopefully you took some value from it. That said, let's move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday, you get a meditation. Something to think about here. All right, here we go. Flowers and butterflies are delicate, but also surprisingly strong. All right, I like this one. Don't know how it connects just yet, but one more time and maybe I'll figure it out for myself here. Flowers and butterflies are delicate, but also surprisingly strong. Oh, I think I caught into one interpretation. That said, that's your meditation. I'm not going to give you what I think about it because it's your birthday. It wouldn't help you, wouldn't serve as a meditation if I told you what to think about it, now would it? So that's just for you. That said, that's your meditation in the can. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where you got the girth ostensibly and maybe where you otherwise a little more atrophied within the metaphor. All right, your strengths: you're adaptable, you're expressive, and you're enthusiastic. All right, interesting. But your weaknesses, oh, let's hold up that objective mirror once more. We'll flip it to the side that blows up your face. That's right, maybe shows off the things you're a little more superficially insecure about there within the metaphor. That's right, your weaknesses. Okay, you're self-effacing, ineffectual, and disconnected. All right. Hey, you know what? Not the worst weaknesses I've heard. All right. Not the worst. And oftentimes I like to make a case that our strengths can help us improve upon our weaknesses. All right. That is, if there's something that even need improved upon to begin with. Okay. Maybe we got them well in hand and we, whatever. But that said, I also like to make the case that our weaknesses can be strengths in and of themselves. So let's see if I can do the work here today. All right. So your strengths: you're adaptable, expressive, and enthusiastic. If you're adaptable, hey, the things that are coming in at you, hey, you're going to be able to adjust. Kind of be flexible if you like. The flowers and the butterfly. I don't want to get into meditation and ruin that for you, all right? But adaptable, flexible. Anything that presents, you're going to find a way to start getting after it. So you're expressive. Now, how can that be a strength to help us with our weaknesses? Hey, you know what? I would say this might come in with that social group that you should be cultivating to no small part, all right? Or no small extent, perhaps. You know what? You express what's going on with yourself. And I know that's probably not what they mean with the expressive. I'm getting more of a flamboyant kind of idea here. But I think if you were able to express your problems, what you think your weaknesses are to other people, you might be able to rally them to your cause, to help you improve upon it. Maybe help you identify when you're doing things, or when you're being self-effacing or ineffectual or disconnected, and you might not recognize it. And because you expressed those things, brought it to the other person's attention, they're going to help you see where you're doing those things, all right? Hey, you're not helping that. Take the trash out again. You got to start getting on it with those mundane things, all right? You asked me to help you identify this. Okay, all right, I'll take out the trash. You know what I'm saying? Now, whether that's what they mean or not quite sure, but I think you get the idea there. Also expressive. Is there the other way to look at it that could help with our weaknesses? The flamboyant way? I don't know. If I come to it, I'll let you know. But enthusiastic, hey, it sounds like that Dale Carnegie stuff. All right, I gotta get pumped up to do the things I don't want to do, or improve upon these weaknesses. Look at it as a challenge. I gotta get pumped up to get after fixing these things or improving upon them. If you're enthusiastic about it, I'd say that's half the battle. One of the strongest things that you can have in your tool bag to help you get after trying to improve upon things. That said, what's the case to be made that your weaknesses are strengths? Well, we got self-effacing here. That'd be, what do you got? You're kind of downplaying your abilities there, or even your importance. And the cons to that, well, it's just a bad look if you're doing it a little bit too much, all right? It also propagates low self-worth, I would say. And what else do we have here? Done in... I don't know what I wrote there, but yeah, it propagates low self-worth, all right? And people don't like sad sacks, all right? They don't want to be around them. So I think that's kind of where they're getting at it. And they're isolating all the time, kind of down in the dumps, and nobody wants to be around that. But how can it be a strength, all right? Say it shows humility if done the right way, okay? And you don't take yourself too seriously either. Oh, I screwed that up. You make light of it, and other people can kind of get a little bit of joy out of it. But, hey, he's cool about it. All right, nice. Or she, right? And what else do we have here? You're also grounded in those respects. If you're noticing those things and you're handling them with aplomb, okay? And it can also help you address your flaws, okay? If you cultivate self-awareness, which didn't really come up today, but it is a through-line thing, or theme, if you like, in the book writ large. Cultivating self-awareness, knowing about ourselves. I tend to do this, I tend to do that. I know that about myself now. I can address those things without having to have other people help kind of bring my attention to them. Most cases, right? So help cultivate that self-awareness and address your flaws, okay? So there you go with the self-effacing. You know what your flaws are, and we can start working on them. So that's interesting that a weakness can be a strength in those respects too, because it's kind of self-referential. But ineffectual, how can that be a strength? Well, it says you're unable to produce a desired result. All right, you're not following through on your goals or the tasks that you've set for yourself. I would say that would be the weakness there, and they brought it up in the breakdown. But what's the strength for it? Like, hey, you know what? If you're ineffectual, you're self-aware of as much. You can generate new ideas. You see what doesn't work. All right. Oh, I wasn't effective in this respect. Hey, you know what? I guess we got to adapt, change things up, and get after it from a different line of or thinking or a different perspective. So it can serve as a strength in those regards. You know what? I'm failing at this, I'm failing at that. But if you're enthusiastic to stick with it, hey, you're just using it as an earmark for what doesn't work. All right. And you know what? Just keep up with the enthusiasm. One of these days, something's going to stick, all right? But make sure you focus, too, and don't just change your direction. Also interesting, too, maybe you take one of those things you're not working on and try to synthesize it into this other thing. So now you're working on two things, and who's to say maybe the result from that is some novel creation. I don't know, get enthusiastic about it, something to try. Any event, a little disconnected with the strengths and weaknesses and making my case. It happens time and again, but that said, I think you get the idea. Having said that, however, I often like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, because they're part of what makes you who you are, all right? That said, strengths and weaknesses in the can. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is use it as an opportunity to try to drum up some inspiration to chase after and figure out our passions. Because too often in life, I meet individuals, ask them what they do, more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. And I think it's just because, they got out of school right into the first job they could get into to make ends meet. And then maybe they're picking up other ones later on down the line, but, oftentimes it doesn't have anything to do with what they like to do. If they even know what they like to do, because sometimes it takes time, effort, and work to figure those things out, all right? And experience, too. And if you're always working at a job you don't like, you never have the time to get out there and experience new things. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to not only see who shares your company, but maybe start examining that. Put the bug in your ear about as much, because if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's that they're trying to figure out what their passions are and start applying themselves toward it, all right? Carving out the time to figure that out. So I think you get the idea. Let's get into it here. We also are, what do we have here? Those born on this day. We have Rudolf Nureyev, a Russian dancer and a choreographer. Nat King Cole, the singer, jazz pianist, and a film actor. We also have James Irwin, a U.S. astronaut. And let me tell you something, this is the month of U.S. astronauts, and it's on the day of the Aerialist. We also had the day of the Heights the other day, day before yesterday, I think. And then, so there's some aeronautical themes in there, is what I'm trying to say, and you're getting some astronauts. So, all right, you get the idea. Thomas K. Mattingly, guess what he was? A U.S. astronaut as well. There we go, following the theme again. And Wessel Williams, a physician and bacteriologist, however you say that word, diphtheria antitoxin developer. All right, so she was focused on the mundane things, the otherwise grounded, if you like. It's possible. It's possible. All right, and what else do we have? Sammy Baugh, Washington Redskins football quarterback and a 6-time passing leader. There was an aerialist, at least with the ball there, right? Bobby Jones, a golfer and a Masters tournament founder, and 4-time U.S., 3-time British Open winner, and the only Grand Slam winner ever, it says. Though this book was written some years ago, that may have changed. We also have Paul Horn, a jazz flutist, saxophonist, and a clarinetist. John Sebastian, a folk rock singer-songwriter and responsible for The Lovin' Spoonful. We also have Gottlieb Daimler, a German pioneer car maker and an engineer. We also have Mercedes McCambridge, a film actress. Kurt Russell, the film actor. Rob Lowe, film actor. We also have Roger Taney, a U.S. Supreme Court Justice. In Dred Scott decision brought the U.S. into the Civil War, it says, and also a U.S. Senator. Let's see. We also have Kate Greenaway, a Victorian children's adult book illustrator, or children's and adult book illustrator, if you like. We also have Annie Wigmore, a Lithuanian nutritionist and the wheatgrass discoverer, it says. Also, the autobiography of Why Suffer? ? So we also have Chaim Gross, an artist, Eileen Garrett, a psychic. We also have Betty Allen, a operatic concert singer, Lisa Sergio, an Italian AM broadcaster and known as the Golden Voice of Rome. A little bit of an aerialist too, in a certain sense, broadcasted itself over the airwaves there, if you like. That said, I know it's a big ass, tall order to try and take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but hey, like I said, maybe just putting the bug in your ear help you start carving out the time to figure that out. Well, then my job is done, all right? Because if there's anything I wish you on your birthday, it's that you're doing backflips out of bed with that enthusiasm of yours to start getting after your day with a purpose, all right? That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. I know I fumbled a few names in there and a few concepts, just everything, mumble-mouthed everything today. So let's make up for it here on my side of things. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't often work for me with the names and words there, if you like. And any event, yeah, we just got to make up for it on my side. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read. Except to say, the season is winter. Your sign, once again, your zodiac sign is Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically. And your quality and element is mutable water. And this has been March 17th, the day of the Aerialist, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you want to get through it yourself there, so you don't have to listen to some guy trail on and not be able to make his thoughts line up. You know what? Hey, this thing makes a great coffee table book, all things being told, all right? And so if you ever have a party over, if you decide to break out of your chrysalis there and entertain if you like, but you're not real good with breaking the ice, this thing's going to do the lion's share of the lifting for you if you're ever in that particular conundrum there. And maybe you don't want to type it in the browser there and you want to support the channel, help this guy out. Hey, I appreciate it in the bargain. That said, book having been relayed, not altogether all too important, because what's important around here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? But for everybody else who joined us today randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value. If you're a return viewer, hey, hopefully you just enjoyed seeing me really muck things up today with the copy and etc. Try to keep things loose, fun, and free here, folks. So, that's how we do. That said, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It was, a pleasure to celebrate your birthday with you. All right. Also, I put together a little, personal message for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. And that's right below the affiliate link for the book. So check it out if you're interested. And before I forget, that's right, your daily numbers. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. All right. See, taste, touch, smell, intuit a little bit of the magic. You understand why I brought it up. All right. That said, stay airborne. All right. But also get your feet on the ground once in a while. Okay. And be that flexible flower there. All right. So, in any event, once again, happy birthday and take care of yourselves.